So today we are reviewing not one, not two, but three figures. The first figure is of Superman as he is depicted in Zack Snyder's Justice League. The second figure is of Cyborg as he is depicted in Justice League and Zack Snyder's Justice League. And the third figure is of Batman as he is depicted in Justice League and Zack Snyder's Justice League. So as you can see, the figures come with some accessories. The Superman figure comes with a special stand that allows you to elevate him to depict him as if he is flying. I'll show you an example of that in a moment. And it comes with a card depicting him as he appears in Zack Snyder's Justice League. And on the other side of the card is some information about this version of Superman. I'm not going to read that out. You can find it online, or I'll just post some pictures later on in the video, perhaps at the end. The figure of Cyborg comes with a similar card depicting him as he appears in the Justice League / Zack Snyder's Justice League. And on the back, you also have information about his character. Oops. Sorry about that, Victor. There we go. So put that down. He also comes with a stand, the regular stand for non-flying characters. And he comes with this this swappable forearm for his left arm. So you can depict him as if he is using his weaponized forearm. I'll show you that in a moment. And the figure of Batman comes with a card of its own, a card that depicts him as he appears in Justice League / Zack Snyder's Justice League, which also has information on the back corresponding to his character. And he comes with a stand. So that's that for the accessories. Now let's consider the artistry of these three figures. Now, despite the fact that these figures are pretty cheap, $20 to $22 each, they are all highly detailed. For example, look at Superman here. Superman is just a guy in a skin-tight suit, but as you can see, there is loads of detail throughout the entirety of the suit. There's this highly intricate embossing / texture work, which prevents the suit from appearing flat. It's not like Superman's traditional spandex suits where it's just a single uniform texture. No, you've got some three-dimensionality throughout the entirety of the suit because of the embossing. So no matter which type of lighting you use, and no matter the angle from which you shine the lighting onto the figure, the suit does not appear flat. It really appears strongly three-dimensionally. It's just a beautiful suit, and this figure captures that perfectly. And if you look at the hair isn't just a single uniform black surface. There is texture work throughout the hair. There's this intricate detail that conveys the idea that he has many strands of hair, and that's very, very cool. And if you look at the cape, same, you have texture work throughout the entirety of the cape. It's not just a flat uniform surface. And if you look underneath the cape, you have the embossing on the back of the suit as well. So the entire figure is highly detailed, despite the fact that it's just a guy in a skin-tight suit. And that's something I really appreciate, both in the movies, the Zack Snyder DCEU movies, and this figure here. It really captures that look, which I really appreciate. If we look at Cyborg, one thing I really like about Cyborg is that the metal that comprises his robotic body isn't just a single uniform surface in terms of, leveling, so to speak. There are raised portions, there are portions that are lower than other portions around it, so it sort of looks like, what it is, this raw, metallic body, a body that wasn't necessarily designed before it was created, but a body that was spontaneously generated and that happens to be made out of metal. So it's not perfectly uniform in terms of its surface leveling. And that really creates a very dynamic look, which I appreciate. Some people don't, but I really appreciate this design of Cyborg. And of course, if you look beneath I would say armor, obviously his entire body is robotic, but there are portions that seem to be a bit relatively vulnerable, if you will. Like you can see in the neck area here, I wouldn't call this an armored portion, even though it is made out of metal. Well, in the movie, obviously this toy is plastic. And you see these ridges, these grooves underneath. Same thing in the lower portion of the torso. Same thing here in between his thigh and his hips. You see these vulnerable areas here, relatively vulnerable, where you have these grooves and whatnot. Same thing on the back. So it's just a very dynamic and highly detailed design, and this figure really captures that beautifully. And of course, if you look at his head, only a small portion of his head, relatively speaking, is organic, but the rest of it is metallic. So you just have loads of detail on this figure. It's very screen accurate, and it really does look like Ray Fisher. I didn't reference or criticize the head sculpt of this figure. It vaguely looks like Henry Cavill, but it doesn't resemble him as strongly as this head sculpt resembles Ray Fisher. But you can see Henry Cavill's likeness in this. I think it would look a bit more like him if there was some shading on the face, but it still looks really good. But this figure here, it really does resemble Ray Fisher to a degree greater than the degree to which this figure resembles Henry Cavill. We'll get to Batman in a second. So overall, I really love this figure's sculpt. It's just so detailed and screen accurate. It looks incredible. Now coming over to Tactical Suit Batman, you can't see his entire face, obviously, but the portion you can see really does look like Ben Affleck. It really does. So they did a fantastic job with that. And just like the other two figures, the entire body is highly detailed. I mean, look at the texture work on the cape. There's even more texture work than there is on the cape for Superman, which is incredible. And of course you have these folds or wrinkles that are meant to convey the idea that the cape is sort of compacted and that it can stretch out even more so, which is really cool. If you look underneath the cape, you have some more detailing. As you can see, there's texture work, like embossing on the upper portion of the back. There are different sections as well. So it's not just one single flat uniform like unitard, like in the comic books, which is fine, but this is the tactical suit. This isn't his regular bat suit, so it's split into sections of armor, which is really neat. Let me give you a good look at the back of the legs. You see the boots there. So nicely detailed. Obviously, if you look at the front, you have all of this detail here, the abs, the chest with the huge bat logo. There's just so much detailing on this. Look at the gauntlets as well. So I'm just overall very impressed by these. They're very much worth more than what they cost, but thanks to the advancements in 3D printing technology, I don't even believe human beings sculpt these things anymore. I think they're just sculpted by computers, 3D printers, based on three-dimensional diagrams of the characters as they appear in the movies. I'm guessing that the CGI artists who work on the movies, they obviously have three-dimensional models of the characters for, the CGI shots, and they probably just send them over to the toy manufacturers, and the toy manufacturers use their 3D printers, and they print you out these little miniature versions of the characters that are 100% screen accurate. It's pretty amazing technology. I'm not exactly sure that that's how it's done, but I'm thinking that that's how it's done. These things are they're incredible. Absolutely incredible. So, that's it for the artistry. Now, we're going to measure the heights of these figures and determine whether or not they are accurate in terms of their scaling. So we're going to start off with Superman. Henry Cavill, who portrays this version of Superman, is 6 feet 1. So that's 72 plus 1, that's 73 inches. 73 divided by 3 is 7.3 inches. So let's see how accurate this figure is. Let me make sure it's standing up perfectly straight. So the knees are locked. So here we go. Let's take a look at the height of this figure here. Let me adjust the focus. So, as you can see, he's about 7.5 inches tall, and that's obviously too tall. He should be 73 inches tall. So 73 inches would translate to 7.3 inches. 7.3 inches, that's about 7 inches and 1/3 of an inch. And this is closer to 1/2 of an inch. So it's a little taller than it should be, but still in the ballpark. So I would say the scaling it's okay. It's not as accurate as it should be. Let's take a look at Ray Fisher. Ray Fisher Cyborg. Now Ray Fisher is 6'3". 6 feet is 72 inches, plus 3 is 75 inches, so 7.5 inches is what it should be. And is actually right around there, depending on how accurately I hold up the ruler and how accurately I hold up this cardboard, but right around there. So I'm going to say this is in scale, which is pretty good. But you have to consider that 6'3" is taller than 6'1". That is, Ray Fisher 6'3" is taller than Henry Cavill 6'1", so the Ray Fisher Cyborg should be taller, but it's not. So the scaling of the Superman is indeed a problem when you compare it relative to other figures in the line. The Superman figure should be shorter than the Cyborg figure, but it's not. Let's take a look at Batman here. Bruce Wayne, portrayed by Ben Affleck. Ben Affleck is 6'4". So that's 72 plus 4, that's 76 inches. So it should be 7.6 inches, a little more than 7.5 inches. Let's see what we have here. There you go. As you can see, it doesn't come up to 7.5. So this Bruce Wayne / Batman is too short, and that's definitely a problem because he's supposed to be taller than Superman. In the comic book, Superman is taller than Batman, but in the DCEU, Batman is taller than Superman. In fact, Zack Snyder even stated in an interview that he wanted Superman to be shorter than Batman, and that's not the case with these figures. So the Superman figure is indeed out of scale. That could have been due to the intentions of the toy designer, the intentions of Todd McFarlane and the people beneath him. You know, Superman is the superhero, so I guess they didn't want anyone else being taller than him, but he's supposed to be shorter than both Cyborg and Batman. So just keep that in mind. Not a big deal, highly subjective. I don't really care, but I'm just pointing that out if you care. Now we're going to compare these figures to other figures by Todd McFarlane's DC Universe brand of figures. So we have, let's see, we have Steppenwolf as he appears in Zack Snyder's Justice League. So as you can see, this is how tall he should be relative to the other figures, minus the small inaccuracies in perfect scaling with these three. Well, he's pretty much perfect, but this one is a bit too short. This one is a bit too tall. But overall, you get the idea. Steppenwolf is a huge guy compared to, normal-sized human beings / cyborgs, right? So let's take him out. Now we're going to put in Zack Snyder's Darkseid before he dons the full armor. And I'm assuming before he bonds with the Omega Force. That's not discussed in the movie, but the presumption by the fan base has been that his first appearance in the movie, in the flashback sequence in which he looks like this, he doesn't possess the Omega Force. So we're not too sure about that though, but this is how he appears the first time we see him in the movie, and this is how he compares to normal-sized beings. He's a giant. Let's take him out, and let's put in Darkseid after he presumably bonds with the Omega Force. I'm assuming that's the case, because when he first appears, he doesn't have the glowing eyes. I don't believe he does. He doesn't have the glowing eyes. When he appears in the rest of the movie like this, he has glowing eyes, which is a sign that he has the Omega Force, which is pretty neat. Let me raise the camera just a bit. Gotta get him in the frame. There you go. So here is Darkseid. And now we're going to bring in Demon Knights Etrigan, also by Todd McFarlane's DC Universe. Demon Knights Etrigan, well, I'm not sure about his Demon Knights persona, because this isn't his default armor. In his regular armor / costume, it doesn't look like this. But this is Etrigan. He's a demon. He's a DC Comics character. And this is him as he appears in the Demon Knights series of comic books. And this is how he scales compared to these three. Now let's bring in another one. King Shazam. Here we go. So there's King Shazam, which is an evil. So here's King Shazam, an evil version of Shazam. As you can see, this is how he scales with these figures. So take from this what you will. And that's pretty much it for the DC Multiverse figures. I don't have any more at the moment. I do have some on the way. I have the remaining members of the Justice League as they're depicted in the live-action movie / movies coming. So that's Wonder Woman, The Flash, and Aquaman. And I also have a figure by Todd McFarlane's DC Multiverse of Wonder Woman as she's depicted in 1984, should I say in Wonder Woman 1984, in which she wears the golden armor. I have that on the way as well. So that's 4 more figures. Now, I do have some other figures, though, that I'd like to compare to these 3. This is Mafex's version of Superman as he appears in Justice League. So pretty much the same version as this one, just not with the black suit. But, I mean, you know, the same costume, etc. It's literally the same costume. It's just that they color graded the suit to appear black in Zack Snyder's version. But it did actually appear on set when they were filming the movie as red, blue, and yellow. But he had them use a special material that would cause it to absorb / reflect light in a certain way that would make it easy for him to make the suit black in post-production. But it's the same suit, so I figured I might as well include this figure in the video to show you how it compares in scale, because it is essentially the same version of Superman. Let me take it off of the stand. As you can see, it's much smaller, because this is a 1/12 scale figure, and these are 1/10 scale. Let's bring in 1/12 scale tactical suit Batman. As you can see, that's how he scales. And remember, these two are they are by Mafex, Metacom Mafex, 1/12 scale figures. I've had these since 2019. I've had them for a while. And we also have Cyborg. Can't really fit him in. Take off the Batman. There's Cyborg. 1/12 scale. And there he is. This figure is made out of die-cast metal, by the way. The whole body is metal, which is pretty neat. So it is pretty heavy for its size. It's a pretty cool figure. Does have some issues that I'm not going to get into in this video. But yeah, these are how these figures, or should I say, this is how these figures compare to their 1/12 scale counterparts. They're 1/10 scale, so they're noticeably larger. Just wanted to include these to give you an idea of that. Not everyone collects 1/10 scale figures, so yeah. So now we're going to check out the articulation of these 3 figures, starting off with Cyborg. So let's adjust the focus. So Cyborg can look up by that much, which is quite a bit. He can look down by that much, which is also quite a bit. He has 360 degrees of rotation with the head, and the arms can bend up this much when the joints of the arms where they meet at the shoulders are facing downwards. They can bend up this much. When you rotate that joint facing upwards, you can get that much bend, that much range, which is pretty good. Now let's check out the elbows. Actually, no, that's skipping a section. Let's check out the biceps, I should say. We have bicep swivel, as you can see, which is very nice. Obviously, on both sides we have bicep swivel. Now the elbows, we have an issue. We don't have double joints, which is really unfortunate. You would think that him having a robotic body, that he'd have double joints, but he doesn't. Let's check out the wrists. Now, let's see. The wrist can go down that much on both sides. As you can see, that's really good. They can go back that much on both sides. Really good. Oops, my bad. So articulation so far is still really good despite the lack of double joints. Now the diaphragm joint, let's see. We can go forward that much, which isn't much at all. Backwards that much, which isn't much at all as well. Now let's check out the diaphragm joint. Back, not so much. Forward, not so much. To the sides, not so much. So you don't get that much range, but there is some movement possible at the diaphragm. Now at the waist, we can rotate the waist 360 degrees, which is amazing. And that makes sense. He has a robotic body. So there's that. His buttocks is made out of soft plastic, so that means you can bend the leg all the way back. Both legs, actually, which is really nice. You can bend the legs forward 90 degrees without them bending outwards or turning or curving outwards to the sides. So that's really good. They stay straight. We don't have a thigh swivel point on either of the legs, but we can sort of swivel the thighs at the hips, but that causes the entire leg to swivel. So I guess I shouldn't say swivel the thighs. You can swivel the legs at the hips. Now, we don't have double joints at the knees either. Also disappointing, but what can you do? At the ankles, we have that much range, which is amazing. Look at that. That's a lot of range. Upwards, we have that much range. Also amazing. And we have toe pivot. Let me just bend the toes. Hold on a second there. See the toe? There we go. We have that much range. I was expecting more, but that's still pretty good. So, overall, I'd say the articulation is pretty good. It's just that, unfortunately, you don't get any double joints. You know, you would think that someone with a body like this would have double joints, but I guess they couldn't implement it for some reason. I mean, his elbows and knees are thin. That's a part of the design. So I guess perhaps the thinness of the elbows and knees hindered the ability to make them double jointed. That could be a factor. Now Superman can look up this much, can look down not so much. I mean, this is the default position, so that's not that much range. 360 degrees of head rotation. Let's take a look at the arms. Now let's take a look at the back of the arms. He does have butterfly joints. You can see it. I don't know if you can really check it out on camera. Cyborg has them too, but I forgot to point them out. But there's no point in really pointing them out because all three figures have the same issue. They have butterfly joints, but the joints are stiff and they don't really provide much range. So it's like they're not very useful. I don't know if you can see it. Like this is the shoulder of the arm, the deltoid. That's the butterfly joint right there in the middle, and this is the back. So there is definitely a butterfly joint there, but doesn't seem to really help in terms of articulation, but it is there. Now let's take a look. When the armpits, or should I say when the joints at the shoulders are facing downward, you can bend his arms this much upwards. Pretty decent. Now when the joints are facing upwards, you get that much range, which is really good. Now Let's put them back downward where they belong. We have bicep swivel, as you can see. And you know we also have double joints at the elbows. Isn't that strange? They gave Superman double joints, but they didn't give them to Cyborg. They're very strange. Very good. He has double joints. Let's take a look at his wrists. Default position. Make sure that the wrists are oriented correctly relative to the hands. Here we go. Oh, Jesus, come on, man. Here we go. So, this is the wrist. Downward, you get that much range. Upward, you get that much range. Consider that the range is hindered a bit by the cuffs of the sleeve, so to speak. So just keep that in mind. On this side, make sure that the joint is positioned correctly relative to the hand. So as you can see on this side, we have that much range. So we get quite a bit of range on both, but just keep in mind that the cuffs of the sleeves do hinder them a bit. Let's check out the diaphragm joint. Now, let's take a look at the diaphragm joint. You get a decent amount of range backwards, more than what you get with Cyborg, but you get nothing going forward. You see that? It just stops. So you can go backwards, but not forward. To the sides, you get a bit of movement, and you can rotate him a bit, which is really nice. At the waist, you get a lot of resistance. I mean, you can turn him at the waist if you apply a lot of force, but it's not meant to happen. You're not meant to do that. It's just not meant for that. You know, so don't try and do it, or you might break the figure. Now, an issue is that the buttocks on this one is hard, so you can't bend the legs backwards at the hips, unfortunately. But Superman isn't known for being acrobatic, so it's not really an issue for this character. Now, you can bend the legs forward at the hips 90 degrees, but they do bowl to the sides. They're not like Cyborg's legs, where if you bend them upwards, they stay straight. No, these bowl to the sides, unfortunately. Let's take a look at the knees. Oh, by the way, no thigh swivel. You can see that. But we can swivel the legs as a whole at the hips, so that's an option. Now, the knees are great because they also have double joints. Look at that. Both knees, double joints. But Cyborg doesn't have them, unfortunately. Very cool. Very cool. So I'm going to check out the ankles now. Here are the ankles. That much downwards, that much downwards, this much upwards, this much upwards. All right, keep in mind that there's a section of the shins here that extends lower than the rest. So that sort of gets in the way of bending the feet upwards. So just keep that in mind. If you turn the feet to the sides of it, as you can see, you get more range. But this piece here hinders that. So just keep that in mind. And we do have toe pivot. We have quite a bit of range with that. I mean, that's amazing. Don't know if you need that much range, but it is there. So Superman's articulation, pretty good, you know. Diaphragm joint could provide more flexibility. But hey, it is what it is. You get a decent amount of range with the head facing upwards, and if you combine that with the range you get at the diaphragm, you can put him into a nice flight pose. So that's pretty excellent. You have double joints at the elbows and knees, which is fantastic. You have toe pivot, good articulation at the ankles. So overall, fantastic articulation for this figure of Superman. Not bad for 22 bucks. Right, let's put him over here. Now, finally, we are going to look at Superman. Sorry, Batman. Forgive me, I misspoke. Now, this is Batman's default position for his head. Downward, we get pretty much nothing. Nothing really. Upwards, we get that much, which is pretty good. So you can sort of imagine him looking up That's Superman floating in the sky. Pretty cool. You have 360 degrees of rotation at the head. Let's take a look at the shoulders. When the joints of the arms at the shoulders are facing downwards, make sure they're facing downwards. There we go. Wait a minute. Where is it? There we go. When it's facing downwards, you can bend the arms up this much, right? But if you have the joint facing upwards, give me a second to rotate it. There we go. You get that much range, which is excellent. Just like with the other two figures. So that's pretty neat. Keep that in mind. You have bicep swivel, which is pretty good. You have it on both sides, obviously. You also have double joints. Isn't that amazing? You get double joints with this figure of Batman. Fantastic. Let's take a look at the wrists. That much going down. Not much going up, but you get quite a bit going down. Not much going up or back, however you'd like to describe the movement. Check out this side. Sorry. There we go. So that's the default position. That's down, up, not as much, but still pretty good range. Keep in mind that you always have to make sure that the direction in which the wrist joints bend has to be aligned correctly with the hands in order for you to get the articulation that you're looking for. So just keep that in mind, but good articulation at the wrist. Let's take a look at the diaphragm, right? Just put his arms up, his arm up. So that's the default position. Backwards you get that much. Pretty good. Can't really go forward. To the sides you can go a bit, and you can rotate them a bit. So decent, not excellent, but decent. You can't really move him at the waist unless you want to break the figure. He also has a soft buttocks, so you can bend his legs backwards at the hips, full 90 degrees, which is really good. You can bend his legs forward 90 degrees. Excellent. We don't have thigh swivel, but we can turn his legs a bit at the hips sideways. But yeah, that affects the whole leg, not just the thigh. Keep that in mind. We do have double joints at the knees. Look at that. It's amazing. Incredible. So, let's take a look at the ankles. Downward that much, upwards that much. Downwards that much, upwards that much. Let's take a look at the toes. You do have toe pivot on this figure. There we go. Goes back quite a bit on both toes. So pretty good articulation overall. Double joints at elbows and knees. Really good upward range for the head, not so much downward range for the head. Really good backward range for the diaphragm and decent range to the sides, but none going toward the front. No ability to turn at the waist, but you can bend the legs completely backwards, 90 degrees backwards I should say, at the hips because of the soft buttocks. You have double joints at the knees, really good articulation at the ankles. So overall, you know, this figure is fantastic in terms of articulation. All three of them lack perfect articulation, but they're still really good overall in terms of articulation. You know, they're all missing a certain capability here and there, each of them, but overall, you're still getting really good articulation with each three figures. So I'm very impressed with them. And that's it for this review of these three members of the Justice League in 1/10 scale by Todd McFarlane's DC Multiverse brand of figures. I am waiting for Wonder Woman, Aquaman, and The Flash to come. I mentioned that earlier in the video. I ordered them from Amazon. They should all arrive on different days this weekend. So I'll review those next week, as well as the figure of Wonder Woman as she is depicted in Wonder Woman 1984 when she wears the golden armor. Oh, and I didn't mention that I also have... Sorry. Oh, and I didn't mention that I also have an alternate version of this figure coming the same figure, but it depicts him with a different head sculpt. It's the head sculpt of him with a fully, extended helmet. Here we go. Oh, and I forgot to mention that I have another version of this figure coming. It's the figure of him. It's the same figure, but with a different head sculpt. The head sculpt is of him wearing a helmet that completely shields his head. So that's on its way, and I'm looking forward to reviewing that as well. So thanks for watching. Be sure to leave some comments below. Be sure to thumb this video up and to hit the subscribe button. Peace out. Have a nice day.